Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Reinvent and Rediscover. I'm your host, Ava Laurie, and this week I want to talk about embracing the off season in order to create the life you want. And I'm going to break this up in 3 steps for you. First, I want to talk about what I mean by an off season, and full credit to some girl I was watching on TikTok talking about embracing being in kind of a flop era. And I was trying to resist it probably all summer to the point where I was feeling guilty for not being as productive and not, creating as much, or not feeling inspired, not feeling motivated in the gym as far as creating, writing, doing this podcast. No creative ideas were really flowing to me. I was not in a flow state at all. And I truly think the more that you resist that feeling of stuckness, the worse that it gets, the more stuck you make yourself. And I want to dive into that a little bit because I feel like taking the time to dial your life back, zero in on your goals, understand more like what you actually want out of life and the next chapter of your life is so essential to moving forward and actually having a clear mentality to creating this life that you want. And I feel like when we are busy and we're constantly in that flow state and moving forward, sometimes that busyness almost becomes a distraction from what it is that we truly want. And I kind of found that actually to be true for myself, being so caught up in movement and constantly moving towards something, even when I didn't even know what I was moving towards anymore because the goalpost was kind of gone, or the goalpost kept moving, and everything became unattainable and a distant dream of mine. So it became so much harder to actually feel fulfilled, even though I was constantly producing and creating and doing and moving towards something. But it led to dissatisfaction. So if that resonates and you feel like you are just not yourself right now, you feel like the motivation to get into the gym is gone, or the motivation to work towards your dreams is gone right now, that's totally okay and that's normal. And part of that is burnout. I think we all reach a point of burnout after spending so much time grinding and working really hard. You do get burnt out. It's normal, it's human nature. And sometimes you have to lean into the burnout and lean into the stillness in order to actually turn the page. But like I said, it's really important not to use energy resisting that feeling, because it will come back. The motivation, the inspiration, the excitement, it will come back so long as you let the feeling of stuckness actually pass through you and actually pass, because it is not here to stay. So with all that being said, and kind of the explanation of what I mean by an off season and kind of the overall goal, yes, I'm laying in bed right now. It's feeling cozy. It's actually 9 p.m. right now. Anywho, so let's get into kind of the 3 steps of the off season, as I'd like to call it, moving forward. So the first kind of phase of this is what I like to call the recognition phase. This is when you first recognize, one, I don't feel like myself, and I feel stuck, everything feels slow, I'm not sure what I'm doing, and a lot of times you're kind of holding on to an identity from the past. Like for me, when I was feeling slow moving and like nothing was really unfolding for me, I wasn't really working towards anything, I was really holding on to the identity of being a marathon runner because I spent 6 months of my life training my tail off to achieve this goal. And then once I achieved it and got injured and I couldn't run, I felt like I lost my sense of self a bit. So Needless to say, holding on to an identity that you kind of no longer practice or that is not feasible for you in this moment is what's keeping you stuck. It's not allowing you to move forward. I had a hard time healing from my injury because I was so caught up in the fact that no, I'm supposed to still be running, 10, 13 miles a day. That's no longer resonating with me because of the circumstances. So it was keeping me stuck and keeping me feeling guilty and unproductive, and it was lowering my self worth and my self esteem by placing such pressure on my identity. And you know what was involved there? My ego. My ego was holding on to that because it was feeding my ego to be able to brag about how many miles I was running and the fact that I ran a marathon from 0 to 6 months. And when you kind of set your ego aside and allow the stillness and you welcome it, that's when my injury actually started to heal. But all that stress I was placing around the fact that I couldn't run, then I started gaining weight, or the injury felt like it was getting worse. And then, my mental health was tanking. It all kind of goes together. So don't hold on to a past version of yourself if you're looking to elevate yourself. And I think that's very easy to say, but sometimes it's hard in practice to not hold yourself to a standard that you used to have for yourself. We go through phases of life. We go in and out of hobbies or goals, achievements, and learning how to pivot is an essential life skill. Now that you achieved one thing, you don't need to hold on to that. What's next for you? Even if it looks like stillness for a bit, okay? So this phase is all about recognizing this and not allowing yourself to feel so stuck, because I was creating imposter syndrome for myself. I felt like a fraud in my day-to-day life. Felt like, oh, now that I'm not constantly writing and posting all my new journals on Instagram, I'm not really a writer anymore. That's not true. I don't need to hold myself to the standard of always posting a new, writing piece on Instagram once a week or every couple of days. I am still a writer, but I'm in a slow period and I'm transitioning writing styles and I'm pivoting my writing goals. Now that I finished writing a book, now my goal is editing, publication, finding a literary agent. And even though that feels like stillness, it's still growth, but you have to recognize that there's different phases and it's okay if they look different externally. And that's how you know that your ego is being fed too much, when it's very obvious externally that you're growing. But when it's no longer obvious, we feel like a failure. The best thing to do is just detach from that identity and that pressure that you're putting on that version of yourself. And like I said, this was creating low self-esteem for me because I felt like a failure. And that overall was impacting my ability to connect with others and feel like my authentic self. Another thing is, I have always claimed to be someone to wake up early and eat mostly whole foods and be active every single day and keep up with content on TikTok and post my podcast every single Thursday and on YouTube and on Instagram. And when I was feeling such burnout, I was not able to kind of hold up to all of those goals anymore and all of those things that I claim to do. And that made me feel like a piece of crap because I was still claiming that and I was no longer doing it, which is okay. But I had to learn and tell myself that it's okay that I'm not currently eating perfectly healthy and I'm not currently as active as I was and I'm not currently as creative and productive. I'm still as consistent as possible, but I am seeking authenticity and I'm pivoting in the way that I am creating, and that's totally okay. But because of this, I felt really disconnected to my true self, and outwardly I was displaying a disconnect. I was reading something and it was talking about how if you feel like you struggle to connect with other people, it's probably because you're not being your authentic self and you're trying to display a version of you that is not true and real. And that's why you feel surface level connections and you don't feel deep because, like the quote, you can only meet people as deep as you meet yourself. And I think that's so true. That's why I try to be open and honest about transformations and transitions and doing things differently. And okay, I'm in a period of stillness. I'm in my off season and that's okay. I'm just chilling out. I'm just learning more about myself. I'm preparing for the next chapter of life and I'm trying to embody everything that I say I am because that's where confidence comes from, is consistently showing up and doing the things that I say I'm going to do. So if I say I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm not actually doing it because I want to be perceived that way, okay, well, it may be feeding my ego to have people think that I'm doing those things, but deep down, I'm going to have a low confidence and low self esteem because I'm not actually living up to those standards that I'm outwardly saying that I am. So it's better off to just claim what you're actually doing and admit to yourself that it's okay I'm slowing down. It's okay that I need this time period to just take things a little bit slower. And that is totally okay. If people are judging you for that, nobody cares. And also you don't need to proclaim like I'm in my off season, I'm chilling out, and you don't need to necessarily proclaim that. Like that's not necessary for other people to even know that. But what I'm saying is within yourself, you need to recognize as soon as you are actually in alignment with who you are externally trying to be and who you are inside, the more confident you will be. And I think that works with manifestation as well. And I don't want to go too deep into manifestation because I have read a lot about manifesting, but I'm not like a credible source to be talking about it per se. But I know that when you are trying to level up and you are trying to attract a certain type of job or financial situation, you have to feel safe and aligned with that version of you in order to attract it. But if you don't, then you're basically detracting it because you don't feel in alignment with it. Your body is still rejecting it. So that's the same thing. If I'm inwardly feeling a lot of guilt for not being this runner who's super consistent with everything right now, then I am retracting it even more and well, I guess the word would be I'm repelling it even more because it's making me feel uncomfortable saying that. So I don't feel so sure about it and now I feel like a fraud, like I said. But if I want to become that version of myself again, and I'm speaking about it and I'm feeling it and I'm feeling comfortable and I'm becoming that, then that's a totally different story. And that's how you can actually manifest that energy back. And that's what I've been doing is like claiming that I have these certain things that I want and feeling certain about it and feeling sure about it. That's what's different is how you feel. Like, do you feel safe proclaiming that? Do you not? That's kind of a different topic. So we'll move forward. I want to talk about pattern recognition because I think it's one of the most important skills that we have is the ability to recognize patterns and be observant. A lot of people are not observant enough on their own habits and the way that they go through life. For me, I am very observant about everything that I do, why I do it, how certain things make me feel, how I feel if I don't do them, all of that. So when I was running and eating a certain diet and my lifestyle was a certain way, I was very observant on how it made me feel. And also the type of content that I was creating, which is very interesting because I created a totally different type of content, like writing wise, when I was running all the time, especially running at night in the winter. It was bringing something different out of me. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like that pattern recognition of being able to identify the patterns of your behaviors and habits and how they impact you. It's important to be able to analyze those, see what works for you, see what doesn't. All of this needs to be happening in your initial recognition phase. You're analyzing, you're reflecting, you're thinking about your life and your habits, what's working for you, what's not, why are you feeling a little burnt outy? What's got you feeling down? What's got you feeling slow? What's got all this happening? This is where you're honestly reflecting and being truthful and honest with yourself. And over the summer, I've done a lot of journaling. Done some journal prompts, some guided journals, whatever you need to do to genuinely think and reflect about your life moving forward and for right now. But all of this reflection happens in this initial phase, and I think it's so important to be observant and also analyzing those observations. Genuinely, if it takes getting a notebook down or talking to yourself, whatever the case may be, observing how life has been changing, unfolding for you, how you have been responding to life in the past year or whatever timeline you want to look at. Okay, so the next phase of this, phase 2, is the burrowing phase. This is like the real nitty-gritty of your off season when you are just burrowing. And for me, this is when I kind of stopped posting on Instagram. I stopped trying to feed my ego with attention and validation. I was not wanting other people to validate me because I'm trying to transcend the outward version of myself that I am presenting myself to be right now. So I don't want them to validate that because it is not benefiting me. So during this time, I'm much quieter. Okay. And this is maybe like a really cringy podcast episode, to be honest, but this was not necessarily self-inflicted. Okay, my off season. This kind of like happened, and this is how I'm referring to it and digesting it for you to understand maybe if you have gone through something similar or you want to level up and you realize that you need to be recognizing patterns, observant, and you need to kind of hunker down and figure out how to move forward. So maybe you're in that position. Maybe, it was not self-inflicted and you're just feeling in a rut. And all of that is totally fine. Anyways, this is kind of when the hard work is happening, honestly. This is when I'm quiet and a little isolated. And honestly, I had a hard time even talking to my friends because a lot of times I was just feeling disconnected, kind of sad and kind of stuck and unsure. And it's just the nitty-gritty of it, honestly. Okay, during this time, I just want to say that it is so important that you pay attention to not fall into bad habits, bad vices, substance abuse, numbing the thoughts, any of that. It's really bad for you, okay? If you're going through a period where you're feeling stuck and you're wanting to change your life around, it's really bad if you are trying to numb all your thoughts with alcohol, with drugs, substances, whatever it may be. Whatever vice is yours, this is not the time to slip into bad habits, because when you're feeling low and you're feeling kind of stuck, it's very easy for that to become a spiraling issue, If you feel numb for a little while and then you just keep doing it, it's going to be really bad. So I encourage you to just sit in the discomfort, in the uncomfortable feelings, and allow it to actually pass through you. it is important that you embrace the stillness and you learn to embrace kind of burrowing down, as I'd like to say. During this time, also, I was trying to soak in as much knowledge as possible, reading and consuming meaningful content. You have to be so wary of the content that you are consuming every day, but especially during this time period of your life when you feel unsure of yourself, to be honest. It's easy to spiral, like I just said. Whatever you are consuming content wise has a direct impact on how you are viewing yourself. So use that for better or for worse, okay? All of that is to say to be mindful. During this time, I'm trying to learn as much as possible. I'm trying to listen to things that will benefit me, watch things that will benefit me, not watch things that will make me feel envious and jealous and unsure of myself. Because when you're feeling that way, it's very easy to feel more unsure of yourself and compare yourself to other people. And it's really not the time to do that. This time period is where my creativity just absolutely dipped through the floor. And if this is happening to you, has happened to you, whatever, try not to freak out. I started freaking out because the ideas were just not happening naturally to me and I was trying to force it. And I read this thing and it was like, creativity is not something that you can force to come out of you, but creativity, when it happens, it's so fragile. It's something you ought to safeguard for yourself, and you ought to figure out how you can protect your creativity and or optimize it. I kept trying to create creativity and force myself to feel creative, and I just wasn't aligning with any of it because it didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel true and from the heart and real. So it just then was feeding into that feeling of imposter syndrome, and it was feeding into the low self-esteem that I was experiencing. You need to figure out how to feel safe in your skin and out of the sort of survival mode that you may have been experiencing for a while, which is what caused you to lead to burnout in the first place, in order to create. So right now, it might be likely that your conditions are not optimal for you to feel kind of safe in yourself to spark that creative flow. And that's okay, because we're going to move past that. But you have to get through that feeling for long enough. Your priorities have just shifted for now. And for me, over the summer, my priorities, as much as I wanted it to be creating, it just wasn't my priority. I had life stuff going on. I had other bigger concerns and priorities. And for me, it's the fact I was looking for a job and trying to figure out where I'm going to move to, what am I going to do, and that pressure of also trying to get back to my fitness level and activity level and take care of myself, and all of that was just burdening me so bad. So I have to get all of these factors set straight in order to create. And sometimes my creativity flows when I'm in a bad place, and sometimes it just disappears. And in this case, it just disappeared. But that's okay, because now I'm realigning with myself, feeling comfortable and safe in myself, and that creativity will be resparked. So if you're in the burrowing phase and everything is still and everything is slow, don't freak out. Just go through it and try to consume from your environment in a good way. Consume meaningful media, consume meaningful content, read books about random topics of interest for you. Take in inspiration from your environment. If you don't like your direct environment, go to another one. Go to an art museum. Go to somewhere that inspires you and try to just take it all in. Don't expect anything, but just take it all in. I feel like you're kind of a sponge during this phase. It's like you could soak up anything you want. You have to be mindful, though, of what you're sponging up. Okay, so the next and final stage is the implementation phase. And this is where all of that reflection, all of that hard work of putting your head down and working hard is actually being implemented and going into fruition. And you're starting to see how that time off from kind of the outside world, social media, the time off from working so hard in the past for the past version of you, how all of that is actually paying off to elevate you into a new version of yourself that you better align with, that you are more proud of, and that you will be more confident in. This is building momentum, okay? That burrowing phase when you're getting back into the gym, you're putting your head down, you're not posting, you're not trying to get your ego inflated. Now you're capitalizing off that momentum. You're like, okay, I've been going to the gym again, my injury's gone. So now I'm building off that momentum. I'm just going a little bit more, trying a little harder, going a little bit more. And that will build the confidence again, that consistency. It all works its way back up. The energy that you put out, you are now receiving in return. It works like a rubber band. I think they call this the rubber band theory and manifestation and things like that. If you flick a rubber band back and equal and opposite force comes back, it's like Newton's law of energy and all of that. This all goes to say, here's me, here's my person, right? If you're on video, you can quite literally see me, but I am putting all this energy out, okay? If you're thinking about a rubber band, it's going to fling back at you, or a boomerang, perhaps. So if I am just speaking so much negativity out into the world, it's bound to happen that negativity is coming back to me. That's why there's some people in life who think that only bad things happen to them, and bad things keep happening to them for like eternity. They're stuck in this cycle. And that's why they talk about cycles and generational cycles of trauma and financial insecurity and this and that, and cycles of whatever through generations, because you have to figure out how to break out of the cycle. Okay? And I was thinking about this recently because it was very easy for me to get into that mentality of woe is me, I'm so negative, I'm so sad, nothing's working out for me. Well, that was just bouncing right back off my head. Because the universe was kind of like, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. And I probably should not be hitting myself in the head. So I had to actively change every thought. And that sounds a little insane, but I had to reframe all of this negativity so that my thoughts can work for me and not against me. So I had to start saying out loud, literally, like, I'm gonna find a job. This is gonna work out. It always works out for me. It always works out for me. God has me in his favor. He has a plan for me. This is going to work out. I promise it's going to be okay. My creativity is going to come back. I'm going to find a publisher. This book is going to get published. I'm going to keep creating. I had to keep reframing all this negativity because negativity will come from the depths of your spirit, and it is so easy to just not even clock it. Clock it, clock the negativity and spin it around, because that energy is coming right back to you. And as soon as you realize that, the easier your life will be. I promise. I had to learn that kind of the hard way too. But life is so much easier when you are in that feeling of abundance. And even if you're putting it out there, this is like what I was saying earlier, even if you're putting it out there and you're still not feeling certain about the abundance that you are projecting, do it anyways. It's going to come back to you. So if that's what it takes, do it, okay? At the end of the day, your brain does not know the difference between what you think and reality. So my thoughts are my reality because I exist through my own perception of the world. So my reality becomes quite literally my thoughts and how I view the world. There is no like objective my reality. It's my reality is subjective because it is through the lens of myself and my thoughts. With that being said, I can create a wonderful reality even in objective suck. Even when things objectively are not great and the circumstances are not objectively optimal, perfect, I can still have a pretty positive and happy reality because it's all about my brain, my thoughts, and the way that I am perceiving the world. Use that to your advantage. And that's what I started doing. Started bouncing all of those negative thoughts away from me and reframing them. And during this time, you have to remember that your body is trying to naturally resort back to comfort. You have to actively resist that if you want to actually break a cycle. If you want to actually break a bad habit or get a job that makes more money, well, maybe you have only ever felt comfortable being broke. So your body is trying, or yourself, you're naturally trying to sabotage any opportunity that will allow you to elevate. So you have to clock that and resist it. That's the only way that you will actually able to surpass it. Your body is going to keep trying to resort back to maybe your old habits, the old version of yourself. And that's why it's so important to have that reflection phase and sit and think and recognize those patterns, is because when now you're trying to implement a new life, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel like you don't really align with it. You're going to kind of feel uncertain and unsure because you're trying to level up and be a new, redefined version of yourself. So if you keep trying to, you're just naturally, subconsciously going to try to sabotage good things. You have to realize that and be like, no, this is what I want, and I feel comfortable achieving and having that and taking ownership of that. So I'm not letting anything get in the way of that. With that being said, you can implement some grounding techniques perhaps to kind of bring yourself back to yourself when you're feeling uncomfortable with the things you are leveling up and achieving, and find ways to remind yourself that you are still you. This version of yourself that you are implementing is still you, and you are deserving of infinite success. That's the whole point of kind of burrowing down and being reflective and going through this off season of life, is because you had a belief in the past that you were deserving of more, and perhaps that caused you to go through burnout and to go through stillness and to go through uncertainty and unproductiveness and months of feeling like you're not yourself and you don't know what to do. That's all because you are right on the brink of a breakthrough. So allow yourself to break through. You are so deserving, and at some point you had an inkling that you were deserving, so you are. Anyways, that's all about the off season, okay? I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, like, comment, share with somebody who maybe needs to hear this, or maybe needs to feel less alone. Maybe they're in an uncomfortable transitional phase of life. I like to talk a lot about the in-between phases of life on this podcast. Reinvent and rediscover, that's what it's all about, is reinventing yourself and learning, growing. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you all next Thursday. Till next time, live passionately. Bye.